a chance, so we met.
So Amy, are you related?
Recording in progress.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Yarmouth Select Board meeting of September 9th, 2025. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you. We're going to start off tonight with announcements. Do we have any announcements? Liz, do you have any announcements?
No, I do not.
Joyce?
I just wanted to remind everyone that the open house at Barnstable County is tomorrow from 11 to 3. All sorts of interesting things from science to history. I'll give you a good chance to get a glimpse of your county government, as well as a really pretty complex on a hill.
Great. Dorcas, do you have any announcements?
No, I don't, thanks.
Mark?
Joyce took mine.
Oh, sure. Bob, do you have any announcements?
I just want to welcome those of you sitting at home. I wonder who's sitting with me. Amy Harwood is our community's new licensing coordinator, and this is, I think, her second week on the job, and she brings a tremendous amount of talent, energy to the position, so we're happy to have her, and she's here this evening to meet with the board and hopefully support the license applications that you have in front of you.
Excellent. Welcome, Amy. Very happy to have you here in Yarmouth. Okay, next we will go to public comment. Tom?
Good evening, Tom McInall, Precinct 3 from the very historic village of Bass River. Nice to see you all this evening. What a year it's been. We got off to a little wet start in the spring, and then the summer came, nice and dry. And when you drive around our community, everybody's sharing love with their family and friends, and our little 600 square foot homes with 12 cars, there's nothing better than that. So I get up tonight just to a little history. About 100 years ago, in 1925, we had a first motel open up in California. And in Yarmouth, we had, I should say, our hotel, which was the Yarmouth Garden Motel Lodge, which is actually where Yarmouth Gardens is now, built in 1930. So the motel is going through its centennial. We don't have too many left here in our community, just a few. I was raised on the property my family has, which was the Corral Motel. It was built in 1940 by some wonderful people out of Dennis. And in 1977, my grandfather closed the motel and turned into a mixed-use property. We have business, we have residential, we have workforce housing. And this is something that our vision, our strip, really needs. You'll be hearing tonight about your tax classification. And once again, we're as low as we can be. We're not going to have the ability to solve all the housing crisis on the Cape. Yarmouth has done its part for many years. As a matter of fact, I think we were known as the bedroom for other communities. So we really need to kind of have a vision on where we're going to be 50, 100 years from now. And the commercial end is extremely important. When we were kids, it was probably 15% commercial tax rate, and now it's 4%. That's not healthy. It's hard for us as a community to do things. We have infrastructure problem, we have coastal problems, and yet we're doing more housing. We just went through an override for firefighters. You get 100 more apartments ready for Route 28. Maybe we're going to get another override for firefighters in the future. So there was a time in 1889 when we celebrated our 250th anniversary. Our motto was foremost in enterprise on land and sea. I'm not too sure what our motto is now, but since the automobile and the motel, our community has changed. And we are a tourist community, unfortunately, and that's the way it's been for 100 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to address the public tonight? Okay, seeing nobody on Zoom, we're going to move on to another agenda item. Our 6:15 item is with Senator Julian Cyr. I do not see him here yet, so if it's okay with the board. Tom, you are representing the first, okay, somebody's here, though. We can move forward and take it out of order? Okay. Is that okay with the board?
Sure.
Okay, so we're gonna, it is advertised for 6 PM, so we're okay to do it. What's that?
I don't think his partner is here yet.
If you don't mind, could I wait for?
We sure can. Absolutely. We will move on to, we'll move on to other items. We can have a quick discussion on the committee policy, Joyce, if you don't mind, because unfortunately, a vote was not put on our agenda, so any update you
Oh.
have on that, we can discuss now, if you don't mind. And we'll
Okay.
put
Well,
it back on our next agenda for a
I
vote.
think I've met what people thought were the needs on this, and one is a structure by which we can allow, if there's big interest on the part of a committee, the members of a committee to weigh in on the selection process of a new member, but at the same time asserting that the final decision is with the Board of Selectmen. I also thought it was necessary to add one other thing, which reminds everyone that everyone who hasn't been a town volunteer in some capacity in the past does have to go through the interview process, even if it's just for a fill-in temporary appointment.
Okay.
Those are the big changes.
Those are the only changes since last time. Does anybody on the board have any questions or comments about the most recent updated
I
policy?
have one question, Tracy.
Sure.
This is the grading, if you will, that Joyce has graciously added to the policy. Should that be, noting what its intention is, should that be in the final packet, the final review, the final record for that interviewee? In other words, it seems that it's, at this point, it's an optional rating. Is that what we want, or did we want to have, again, we were trying to have a rating because we recognized that it might solve problems at a future date with contesting.
It would be archived and, yeah.
Yes. So would we maybe want the candidates' qualifications, which are in the ratings, to be carried forward and to be a part of it? Always a part of it, or just, at this point, it's elective?
I guess I'm missing what you're talking about.
I think
In the
I know what
case
she means, if that
If the
helps.
policy states that there are multiple candidates and multiple interviewees, then I believe that the intention is to utilize that program.
If the committee wants to get involved with all the members, I haven't seen this yet with anything except Old Kings Highway, but my thought is that the adjectives of evaluation, which Bob graciously contributed last meeting, that they would go to the appointments chair, to the chair of the committee, and if the staff member affiliated with the committee is there. In other words, they would go to the interviewing committee, then appointments chair brings forward appointment to the select board. But I don't see the paper following. I see the paper being, the adjectives being registered rather than becoming a part of, say, select board record. Does that answer your question?
Yes, but I think then it needs to be rewritten, because the way it's written here, it's if the committee chair wishes to weigh in on the selection process, then there's these qualifications. So I think what we're trying to say is that it should be a part of the deliberations always, I thought, but I could be entirely wrong.
Not sure what you're asking here now. I thought I was, but,
So there's only one paragraph that talks about the grading, and it's not a requirement. It's an if the committee chair wish to weigh in, then they can apply these gradings. But it's only if this committee chair and a quorum wish to weigh in.
and you think the if part should be more emphatic so people will get it?
So it's a part of the process. Right now, it's not a part of the process. It's an elective.
Oh, it's absolutely meant to be if the committee chair and a quorum of the committee want to do this.
Right, but what if the committee chair and the quorum doesn't want to do it? It's then discarded. There is no grading.
That's okay, though.
Oh,
But then-
should I
then-
put in the unlikely
No,
event
apparently
or
that's
something?
fine.
I think that the intent is, I mean, basically, then you're reverting to her solely, and then,
And who knows what
Yeah,
mischief she could
No,
enact.
I don't mean it in that regard. I just mean, if you're taking multiple, input from multiple people, how else would you have a process without having a public discussion, So, to me, if you're individually making that choice based on your own opinion, then that's one thing. But if you have multiple people giving, their input,
you
that's
give them
really,
a structure
that's
for
really,
it.
to me, the only time I think that it's a valuable tool. I think that was our intention from the beginning, is how do you, without discussing in public, Joyce was nervous
You know how
about-
sensitive I am about, cherishing our applicants.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
we should be. And I think that is the tactful way to be able to take a consensus of a larger group. But if the chair in the quorum doesn't want to weigh in, it's a moot point.
I'm thinking on this as I try to figure out the kind of ability to offer that choice, but at the same time not seem to impose it as an expectation, that in some ways, what I need to do with the first paragraph on page 2 is to indicate that if the committee chair indicates that a quorum of her committee would like to weigh in, then this is our structure. Make it a
That's
bigger
probably a
if
better-
clause. Would that do it for you?
I think that's better. Yeah.
Okay.
Makes it more clear.
And onward we progress.
Okay. Anybody else have any other comments, so we can bring this to a final vote at our next meeting? And
Oh, I'd never
Not-
that.
well, if you have any comments, the final thing, just please review it and give it to her in advance.
Yep.
Didn't get it.
The edit shop is always open.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay. So we will strike that and put that on our next agenda
No,
for
good
a
point.
vote. Are you prepared to do appointments, Joyce? Can we?
Yes, although I was going to wait until Rachel was here for her reappointment, and she's coming for the Cultural Council update. Could we do town administrator items, maybe?
Sure, we can.
That way Bob can coast at the end of the meeting.
The plastics will be ready,
Oh, the plastics people are here. Did not know.
if that works.
That might be a little bit longer of a discussion. I want to be ready for Julian when he comes in, if we can. I don't know, it's up to the board.
I'm ready.
Okay, go ahead.
Andy is here also for the tax classification, if we could let him go
Oh,
home
that's a
early.
hearing that's posted.
Yeah, that takes a long time, too. I'll just do mine quickly
okay,
and be able to jump right in. I don't have a long report, but a couple of key items. First of all, I want to give my special thanks to the Select Board for approving our recent Employee Appreciation Cookout. And a special thanks to all of our town employees who work hard all year round. It was a great afternoon. We had a great time to share a burger and just express our thanks for what we have here in town. It's a great place to work, and I want to thank
Thanks to Bob.
the members that came.
Nice cookout.
No burns, worked out great. And I also wanted to speak on behalf of Mary Maslowski, has been setting up with Town Council, board and committee training for open meeting law and conflict of interest. And this is a follow-up on that very successful session that Select Board member Joyce Flynn put together for all of the committee chairmen. And Mary's presentation on those topics was easily the show stealer, and the questions just kept flowing, and it was so well received. We thought that having this for all of the boards and committees to try to have a real organized effort and make sure everyone gets this training, and that Town Council is down here to do it, would be a very valuable tool. So I really thank Mary. She took the leadership on this and arranged it all, and I think it's just a great job. And thanks also to Town Council and Joyce Flynn for starting the whole process. And I wanted to mention briefly on our library site discussion from the previous meeting, I should be aware that Town Council is continuing to review all of the potential Article 97 issues associated with that site. It's a large site, and a portion of it has been designated as the Sears Playground, but the committee is looking at those issues and working on potential alternatives within the context of the entire site to avoid any areas that have been designated with protection. And the most important thing is I just want to make sure board members know that we have on October 7th the full update for the Select Board on the Library Study Committee, and they'll be prepared to address all of the issues, including the playground site, MacArthur Building, all the location, and I think it'll be a great chance to get everyone together and have some public discourse on what the Library Building Committee is doing, and thanks especially to Dorcas McGurn on that committee. I know they're meeting this week, and they've got another meeting to prepare for that, and they'll be in to see the Select Board right after that. And I wanted to also mention that we've conducted an interview for our grant-funded energy manager position, and we hope to be close to filling that position soon. We've identified, after kind of a long recruitment, it's difficult finding the right people, but there's a fairly local resident that actually has a master's degree in that subject, like from Johns Hopkins, no less. And so we've got some highly qualified candidates. And I really want to thank, we have our recruitment panel. Again, folks are used to seeing these now with Sarah O'Reilly, Amanda Lima, Nate Wetton. I participated, but also I want to thank Liz Argo, who graciously agreed to participate on that interview panel. And thank you to Liz for that. It was a great opportunity. And we hope this is going to be very valuable for the town. And I also need to just shout out Liz she was the one that, remember, brought this grant opportunity into the Select Board, which you approved. So it looks like it's going to have a successful resolution in time for the big orientation process at the state. So thanks everyone for that one. And I also want to mention that we're nearing the completion of our blogging studio here in the town hall. We hope to produce programming on a wide variety of local issues just to help engage local residents in town business, local affairs, share information with folks in an entertaining, sort of informative way. So I need to especially thank the communications team for putting this all together with the funding from our cable public access. So it's exactly what that funding is for. We're planning shows now, and we hope very strongly to involve directly members of the Select Board in the process to get you folks on the air, to share your passion, ideas on issues that are close to your heart, things that you're working on. And we'll be reaching out to you to arrange topics as we move forward. And we think it'll be a great opportunity to get residents to have a chance to get to know you outside of just the meetings that we have talking about issues. And we also are going to be involving, department heads from across, to just try to go completely across the board with the issues that we try to get out there in the community. I think it'll be helpful. So those are just a smattering of issues that we're bandying about this day.
Excellent. Thank you for jumping ahead on that, and you can reserve the right to hop back in at the end if other items come up that need to be addressed. But I see Senator Sear here. If perhaps you can come forward with your team. Thanks for coming tonight. Of course. This was a topic that was requested by, I believe, Liz to have discussed, which is an update on the transfer tax proposal.
Sure.
Well, thanks so much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me. And it's good to see all of you, and happy post Labor Day on Cape Cod. The traffic is noticeably calm along Route 28. Only took an hour to get here from Provincetown versus the 90+ minutes that we have to calculate in the summer months. But delighted to be here. Delighted to talk about housing, transfer fee, a number of other issues. Want to also just touch, briefly on a few other sort of legislative matters that are pending in the legislature, issues that are germane to Yarmouth. First and foremost, wastewater, absolutely critical across Cape Cod and the islands, but particularly here in Yarmouth, and really want to commend this board and the town for its leadership in finally getting shovels in the ground and seeing phase 1 of your sewer project move forward. We know there's some traffic hassles. We know there's some headaches. We know homeowners are trying to figure out how they're going to afford sewer hookups and the like. But this has really been a key commitment, not only of mine since I've been serving in this position since 2017, but really in the entire delegation. The Cape Cod Alliance Water Protection Fund has made the difference in realizing these projects to date. $309 million of other people's money have come to subsidize projects and debt service across the region, including $37.5 million right here to Yarmouth. So those are dollars that property taxpayers in Yarmouth are not having to pay. Those are significant savings, about 25% subsidy, very, very significant. We're working to further ensure and shore up that funding stream in the future. Some uncertainty, of course, at the federal level. If you look at the administration's proposed budget, there's significant cuts in clean water, but we're hoping this is an issue that cuts from a bipartisan perspective, and hopefully that won't be affected. The other piece is, yep.
I just want to ask my first question right there,
Yes.
because one of the things that we've talked about this year, and you talked about the traffic hassle, but one of the items that this board's discussed has been a business interruption fund. A lot of our businesses are really, unfortunately, financially impacted by what's happening. And I don't know if you know of any funding or any source of funding for businesses that are impacted by the wastewater projects.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a good idea. I'm not aware of any sort of like immediate fund that sort of comes to mind. It probably needs to be something that y'all might have to kind of come up with, but I don't know. We can have some creative thinking. We can ask about that. I often hear, and what I hear a lot about is not just look, there's some hassle and there's some closure of businesses, but really affording not only the betterments, but the sewer hookups. The sewer hookups can be quite difficult. In landmark tax reform that we did last session, $1 billion in tax relief in Massachusetts. Included in that was a tripling of the Title V septic tax credit. And if you are in a nitrogen-sensitive zone designated by DEP, which is Yarmouth and most of Cape Cod, that tax credit also applies to sewer hookups. So that's a significant savings for folks. And I want to make sure that viewers at home know about this tax credit that you can take advantage of. It will apply to you. I don't know. I'm glad to think sort of creatively or sort of ask Economic Development Office what sort of ideas they may have.
That'd be great. I didn't want to interrupt.
Okay.
It's
No,
just as you're going through the items,
jump
things
in.
are gonna.
But I think that the more immediate task for us legislatively is ensuring that Governor Healy filed the Mass Ready Act. It's her environmental bond bill. Included in there is language actually that I had secured in a prior bond bill that effectively dedicates a certain sum of state dollars, ensuring it's coming to Cape Cod. We're going to work to preserve that, see how we can expand that. We also work to have the cap. There was a cap on the draft intended use plan that would have been problematic for our towns. We got that lifted. So we continue to stay very engaged on wastewater. It's crucial for cleaning up our environment. The reason why people are coming here is our alleged pristine environment. It's not that pristine. And also wastewater ties in so closely into housing, which is sort of the other crisis we're facing. I'm just seeing if there's any other... The only other sort of business I wanted to sort of address, I don't believe you folks have pending home rules. I think we're waiting on a home rule to come up. We thank you for that. Not all the towns in the Cape Lands district are as judicious with their home rules. My district files the most home rules of any out of the 40 senators. Nantucket leads the way with like 13 or 14 a year. But we will work hard to pass Yarmouth's sole home rule. And then I know on the Bass River bridges, there's been a lot of kind of conversation about the Bass River bridges and more broadly around the Bass River. We've seen a lot of leadership in the town, in both Yarmouth and Dennis, and as well as the Friends of Bass River on this issue. We're concerned about the two Route 6 bridges over the Bass River. They were built between 1966 and 1971. They're in poor condition. They have rotted pilings, rusted rebar, crumbling concrete. The westbound bridge is in worse shape. There's some visible structural damage. We've asked MassDOT to do an inspection. They did an inspection of the bridges in April 2024. We're sort of pressing them for a little more information on this, or maybe even getting them to have a tour of the bridges. When we've raised this issue sort of repeatedly to MassDOT, I think there are a number of bridges across the Commonwealth that have some deferred maintenance issues, but we continue to push them to be really looking at that. I think the impact of having a weight restriction on those bridges would be very significant especially for Yarmouth around having that would be not something we want to have. Also on the Bass River, in the FY26 budget, I was able to secure $50,000 for the Bass River the Friends of the Bass River rather, to install passive filtration culverts, and also work to remove this invasive Chesapeake Bay boring sponge, which is present on those bridges. So those are dollars that are going to be coming to the Bass River effort. But we're going to stay on the bridge issue. Of course, we have some bigger bridges we're working on replacing as well, a little to the west of here. So on housing, right? Cape Codders and also Islanders face the most acute housing crisis that we see in Massachusetts. Massachusetts has actually one of the worst housing crises in the country. I think only in Hawaii is it more unaffordable to be able to either purchase a home, own a home, or even rent. In Barnstable County, we've seen the median home price rise from about $350,000 when I first ran for office to north of $600,000. It's an 87% increase in over a decade. Certainly in extremities in the region, it's even worse. Here in Yarmouth, pre-COVID, median home price was about $367,000. Now, today, it's $605,000. So a very significant increase, almost a doubling in just a short time. Median income in the town of Yarmouth is a little over $81,000. And to be able to afford that median home in Yarmouth, a household has to make $169,000. So there's a clear gap, and Yarmouth is among the most affordable towns in median home price on all of Cape Cod, right? So it just gets worse as you go further out. Median home price is higher even in Barnstable and Falmouth. So really, this is really a critical crisis for us. We've had a housing crisis for 20 years, but the pandemic and its aftermath and this real estate rush really has put us in a real dire situation. And just as we have worked so hard in a collaborative fashion to make headway on wastewater, right, understanding that the scale of what we have to build and what we have to clean up is so much bigger than the 23,000 odd residents who live here year round, right? It's for the population we support in the summer. And so we figured out a whole host of creative ways to secure state resources, to bring in additional revenue through the Cape Cod Lines Water Protection Fund with that surcharge, the 2.75% surcharge occupancy, all dedicated to wastewater. Tax credits and the like that I talked about. I think similarly with housing, we're facing we're facing quite a bit of challenge. We have done some pretty significant things in the Affordable Homes Act, which is a $5.1 billion investment in housing that Governor Healy signed into law last August. Has a number of very significant provisions, both financial and policy-wise. One of those provisions relates to what's called a seasonal communities designation. This gives qualifying towns a special toolkit around how do you preserve year-round housing. Most of our housing policy tools are available for people of low income, but in our communities, right, we're going to have to get into the business and figure out a way that how do you subsidize housing not only for people of low income, but really across the income spectrum. The conversation, on Nantucket or in Provincetown, which are sort of the canaries here in the region, is really they're talking about how do you subsidize housing for most all year round residents. In Nantucket, they have the need to subsidize like 240% area median income. And that's likely coming here, probably a decade or so or whatever away. So seasonal communities, Yarmouth was not automatically designated into that. There was sort of a threshold of 35% of your seasonal housing stock. You folks just missed the cutoff. But the law very clearly spells out criteria for housing and livable communities to deem additional communities. Yarmouth will meet those criteria if you look at how they're spelled out in the statute. I talked to Housing and Livable Communities this morning, and it's likely we'll see draft regulations implementing seasonal communities should come out. We have a meeting on Nantucket actually on Thursday. We should see those draft regulations come out. Final regulations finished by the end of the calendar year, hopefully in advance of town meeting season. And I'm also really pushing that invitations to join seasonal communities also go out to towns like Yarmouth. We expect Barnstable, Falmouth, others, a number of communities in the Berkshires as well, figuring out they have sort of a similar problems and challenges there. So that is coming on seasonal communities, and stay tuned there. This is meant to be a tool. This is meant to give towns like Yarmouth and across the region a special set of tools, having a year-round housing trust, the ability to give a municipal preference, to give preference to municipal employees with housing. I'm sure when you look at hiring, you have a great, relatively newly minted town manager, but housing becomes a really big challenge and is really part of what municipalities are going to have to offer. Also the ability to have year-end deed restrictions, a few other components as well. So stay tuned on that. But both myself and Representative Kip Diggs, who serves on Seasonal Communities Advisory Council, we both do, really making the case that Yarmouth should have access to this tool, and I expect that you folks will. So seasonal communities and the Affordable Homes Act sort of gives towns the policy tools to really look at how do you begin to preserve and build attainable housing, right? That missing middle income housing. The real challenge then is how do you figure out how you're going to pay for that, right? And we have sort of a few ways that we subsidize housing. First and foremost, we have federal and state tax credits that go primarily to low-income housing developments. These are the traditional LIHTC program. Yarmouth has benefited from those programs. Then you have programs like CPA, which was sort of invented here on Cape Cod back in the day during the land bank debates, which was about another a prior debate around transfer fees. CPA dollars, an effective tool, right? But are kind of de minimis around how much they can invest. The other way that communities can put dollars into housing, right, is just votes at town meeting, right? But that requires going to your voters. Some towns are doing that. Nantucket's voted to authorize over, I think, upwards of $86 million directly for housing. They're an island. They've got a bit of a more acute crisis, right? But understanding the reality that, you just went to town meeting voters for, 200 and something million. Unlikely that town meeting voters and that towns are going to be able to support really the robust investments that we think we're going to need on housing just in votes at town meeting, right? You got a lot of people, even though our property tax rates here are comparatively low or lower than where they are sort of over the bridge and in other communities in Massachusetts, you have a number of residents who are land rich but cash poor. The valuations are very, very high. It's just probably not a realistic model. So we're trying to figure out other ways and how you could bring revenue to bring to our problem here, and really helping us help ourselves. And the model that we've looked to actually is in Colorado. The Colorado ski towns and really the Colorado counties surrounding those ski towns, places like Vail, Colorado Aspen, Crested Butte, they have, about 20 years ago, implemented a transfer fee on luxury housing transactions, and they use that transfer fee to establish a year-round deed restriction program. So both going in to purchase existing properties, and put a year-round deed restriction on existing properties and then on newly built properties. The program has been quite successful. About 30% of the housing stock in Vail, Colorado, are year-round deed restricted, meaning you're creating sort of a secondary market, a below-market housing stock that's available to year-round working people. In seasonal communities like Vail or like Yarmouth, properties here are valued not on what the year-round working person can afford or the economy can support. It's really based on the valuation of that unit, that home, for what it rents for by the night in July and August, in our case, in the Colorado ski towns, in those winter months, right? So this has been a very successful program. Nantucket and now Martha's Vineyard and now the Outer Cape towns have really, and Lower Cape towns have really championed this approach. I think 13 of the 19 communities I represent in the Cape and Islands District have all filed some form of home rule petition requesting the legislature to establish a transfer fee. All 6 towns on Martha's Vineyard have actually are supporting a housing bank proposal modeled after their land bank, and is something that they're sort of clamoring for at a regional level. There's some discussion, I think, in county government here in Barnstable about how does the county weigh in around this being a tool that we'd like our region to have. But I think as we're trying to figure out where do we get resources and money for, to address this housing crisis, I'm a big fan of giving, of communities getting opportunities to, if they choose to have this revenue source. And so there's conversations for the communities who haven't sort of taken up the transfer fee. So Nantucket, all 6 towns on Martha's Vineyard, Provincetown, Truro, Wellfleet, Eastham, Orleans, Chatham. I think Brewster is taking something up or has taken something up. We've had conversations with the Dennis Select Board about this issue, and I've talked to town council leadership at Barnstable about it. Falmouth has passed a home rule petition as well. So the strategy really, the legislative strategy is to kind of convey to my colleagues on Beacon Hill, right, that Islanders, Cape Codders now are clamoring for the tool, are asking for the ability to, help us solve this problem with existing sort of revenue, essentially largely other people's money. If you look at the vast majority of real estate transactions across Cape Cod and the islands, these are secondary home purchases. These are second and third homes, fourth homes. The proposals vary, right? Some towns have set the threshold at $2 million and above. Others have set it at $1 million and above. I think actually the real sweet spot here is really about the exemptions, right? And so a number of the, best examples of these home rules have exemptions for first-time home buyers, exemptions for affordable housing developers, those sort of exemptions. Most of them are actually put the fee on the buyer, not the seller, right? Understanding that the dynamic of the real estate market here. So I can sort of go on and on sort of about this, but really this is sort of a tool that most of my constituency is asking the legislature to advance. This is a policy that Governor Healy supports. She included this in her Affordable Homes Act bill that she had initially filed. It fell out in negotiations, and really the House and the Senate didn't take it up last time. I think we're trying to take different approaches to bring this revenue. I don't think, from a cost perspective, we estimate that we have about a $500 million problem on Nantucket, a $500 million problem on Martha's Vineyard. If you look Cape-wide, it probably would be north of that. So where are we going to get the resources from? We're already pushing the state pretty hard on paying their fair share when it comes to wastewater, And the wastewater bill that we have, we think in Yarmouth, right, you have over the 40 years, is probably almost $1 billion price tag alone. We're going to keep at that. We've had a really successful track record of bringing home the bacon on wastewater. We have a whole host of other efforts that we've taken related to regional equity. Actually, in the Chapter 90 bill, the governor signed into law. There's a Senate-led provision around ensuring that road miles are counted actually by the mileage, not by sort of an old formula that left out larger towns or more rural towns, or towns that have a lot of mileage. So, we're always sort of working to tweak policy and ensure that, the true needs of Cape Codders and Islanders are met. Everyone knows this place, what this place is in those busy summer months, but we know the reality is that we have scores of constituents who are struggling to make a life here really across, the lifespan. But, I really am encouraged to see, particularly in communities across the Mid-Cape where you folks have a bit of a chance to get ahead of the housing crisis in a way that we didn't do on the outer Cape. That the islands are struggling now to do. There was a proposal that was floated and an effort made in 2003, 2004 for this sort of policy on the islands. I was in high school then. I wish we had gotten that done. But I can just tell you, right, as someone who was born and raised in Truro, who lives in Provincetown, what has happened in our communities is quite concerning with an aging population. I know scores of people who've had to leave because they've lost housing. If you have any hope of affording something, it's quite unideal. So really, I think if we don't, and there's been a lot of effort made in recent years to resolve this challenge, but I think is really, really going to be something we're going to be grappling with. And how do we as a peninsula and as a region, how do you support the oldest population, not only just in Massachusetts, but in New England, where 30% or more of our workforce is commuting over bridges every single day, where we're losing about 1,000 Cape Cod families, working families who have to leave year after year because they can't find housing. We're increasingly reliant on an immigrant workforce, and the reality is so much of that workforce, people are living, a 2 or 3 bedroom house, 15 people living in there or more. You know that. You can see that, in your neighborhoods. You can see that play out in our schools. So I'm going to keep working just doggedly on this housing issue. We've made quite a bit of progress with seasonal communities, and we're now trying to push and figure out how we can now basically bring home the bacon again around housing by having a local option transfer fee. So I think we've shared some information with town administration that hopefully is going to be, if not in your packets, will be in your packets. Glad to answer any other questions you may have. I should say this is a policy that is supported near unanimously in the delegation. This is supported by the Cape Cod Chamber of Commerce. This is supported by a number of our housing advocates, Housing Protect Cape Cod, a whole host of initiatives that and organizations I think understand, increasingly employers who really have been saddled with a task that they don't want to do, right, which is providing housing for their employees. This is no longer just a responsibility for hospitality, which has been doing this for decades. But we have our hospitals and healthcare networks getting into the business of being housing developers because they, cannot recruit and retain a workforce because their staff can't afford to live here. So I know a lot about this topic. I want to be respectful of your time. I'm glad to answer questions. This is really designed to be something that's meant to work for each town and really meant to be an option. And I think we would want the town of Yarmouth to be able to have this option or the state to move forward on it.
So just for the public's record, we're talking about 2 separate bills that you've filed. One is Senate Bill 966, which is related to the seasonal communities, correct? And then the Senate Bill 1434.
No, those are separate. Those are separate bills related to. No. So what I'm talking about is a home rule petition that the town would then sort of submit. I can talk about those 2 bills if
No,
you
that's
want.
what's been submitted to us for discussion tonight, so that's what Yeah. I just want to, okay.
Yeah, so Senate Bill 966 is a placeholder legislation around adding more tools into seasonal communities. One of the ways, we've run into opposition in getting this transfer fee, local option transfer fee passed. One of the strategies is to say, hey, look, maybe you give seasonal communities have the ability to have that transfer fee. And then
Okay.
the 1434 bill is
Affordable housing
basically a
trust.
negotiation around saying, to receive sort of a statewide perspective, be like, look, we'll let communities who have if communities want a transfer fee, they have to meet certain zoning standards. It's a carrot and stick approach. But really, I think what
So what,
should be focused on, I would look to home rule petition models in Chatham, what Chatham's filed, what Nantucket's filed, what Provincetown's filed, probably the best sort of examples there of what that would look like.
okay. So the tools there.
apologies that-
No, that's
yeah.
fine. That's fine.
I was like, those bills are, yeah.
Glad we had the discussion, because that's what I was reading and looking at. The home rule petition allows for the flexibility, but the underlying mechanism is already allowed by law, right? So there's not an infrastructure that needs to be put in place, like what happened with the wastewater infrastructure, that was a state infrastructure that had to be put into place, then we opted into it. So this would
So-
be different than that.
So the, can you repeat the question?
I'm sorry.
No,
So I'm thinking, when I think about home rule petitions, often the ones that we opt into or bring to town meeting isn't one that we've basically created ourselves. It's a tool that the state has that we are opting into.
So communities will pass home rule, thank you, I'm sorry. Communities will pass home rule petitions that sort of have of two varieties. One will relate to an easement on state land, to put, sewer infrastructure, renaming of a road, pretty sort of routine sort of stuff. These are perfunctory, they're passed. The other reason why communities will pass home rule petitions and send them to the legislature is they're effectively sort of a policy wish list. We have seen communities pass home rule petitions for transfer fees. We've seen them restrictions on pesticides related to a whole list of other, the closing of Pilgrim Nuclear Power Station, which I believe passed in Yarmouth a number of years ago. So this transfer fee would probably be in the sort of secondary category, right, of having a community on record saying, we want the ability to access this tool. Legislature give us that tool. What happens when you have, 13, 14, 15 communities in my district, the city of Boston, Cambridge, Somerville, towns like Amherst in Western Massachusetts, when you have sort of a critical mass of these communities requesting that policy, that's how it gets done. I think a good example of this playbook was with expanding room occupancy tax to short-term rentals. So this is exactly how that playbook worked, right?
So in terms of the
Yep.
details, though, we have the ability, so say this board had a discussion that we wanted it to be a certain dollar amount. Obviously, you're talking about 600,000 is the average median. I don't personally see $1 million being a luxury home anymore. It's got to be a higher number than that. And for me, somebody who's a year-round year-round homeowner, I'd look at that different than somebody who it is a second, third, or fourth home. And I'm just wondering if we have the flexibility to write the petition the way that we would want, what this board discussed it and brings it to town meeting.
That's exactly, I think,
Okay.
what we would want you to do. One, I think you want to have something that you want to have tools that work for the communities. What they also do is they help give the legislature some parameters around what communities are looking for. When we took up, expansion of room occupancy, there was a whole host of different, home rule petitions, right? Some of them said, we want to be able to have a certain percentage and we want to put the money into wastewater. Some said they wanted to put it into tourism. And that then ended up going into the, broader policy process. So I would really encourage you folks to look at what would really make sense and work for Yarmouth. Most of the statewide legislation that'll say it's a local option will say, communities may set the threshold as low as $1 million, but then they could raise it as ever high as they want. We also expect right over time, median home price in Yarmouth is, now around $600,000. it's going to be around $800,000. It will pass $1 million at some point, right? We know that, and so we want these tools to be flexible. And again, this is trying to figure out how do you get revenue that's not just on the back of property taxpayers. And I think we have to be honest that, in the Commonwealth, I think it is difficult for us to get, significant resources for these problems here. One, it's a big state. We got a lot of big host of challenges. I think the relatively comparatively lower property tax rates that we have here, my colleagues who represent suburban towns will say, I never bring up this topic on Beacon Hill, right? Because, we don't want to get into it there. But, I think that I really sought to figure out how do we ensure that Cape Codders and Islanders can continue to have a year-round life here, and how do they afford that, right? And if it's just on the back of property taxes, we're going to be really limited in what we can afford and what we can do. And so hence these other essentially revenue proposals we've been successful about that effectively have been other people's money helping us to pay for a problem that frankly other people, our visitors, our part-time residents, our seasonal residents.
They've helped to create it.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to the board. Mark?
Thank you. Thank you, Senator, for being here tonight. And I appreciate all the assistance that you and your staff, and I see you have several folks from your staff here, and I'd like you to call them out because they do a great job on your behalf.
I really appreciate that. So we have Michael Holcomb here.
Yes. I see Michael in the back.
Who's my district director.
Yep.
And Bob Keary, who is my communications director. Both Bob and Michael are Cape Codders. And I think, as you well know, you're only as good. You only can do as good in this work and be as effective in this work as your staff, right? And you folks know this too.
They do an outstanding job
really
in
do. I
representing
appreciate
you and in serving the community. So I just wanted to thank you for your good work in hiring very, very talented people that really grasp this stuff and are very active in serving the community. I also appreciate very much your leadership on the wastewater work and clearly on housing. And I think you sort of teed this up for us tonight to have a really thoughtful discussion on the board here about what should we be doing in this area. And I think one of the key points that you made that's going to be very helpful is that this is optional. Passing a home rule petition to authorize the use of a transfer fee, having a petition filed gives us the authority to do it, but ultimately it will come down to us to determine whether or not we want to vote for it or approve it, or the voters of Yarmouth. It's ultimately their decision. So by us as a board supporting a home rule petition on it, we may support the petition, but some of us may not necessarily support voting for it should we be granted that authority. And I think that's an important distinction and fact for folks to be aware of. So I think it's incumbent on us to figure out how do we have that discussion. When do we present something for the voters here to deliberate on and discuss? So that's on our plate. So I just wanted to thank you for being here to talk about this tonight and for all the help that you've been giving us. It's been terrific, and I'm glad that we're having more discussions about wastewater, and there's an awareness about what's happening in Washington. As you know, I'm very worried about wastewater. We've talked about this on numerous occasions. I'm worried about a significant cut in the SRF because the administration proposed a 90% reduction in the SRF, and that would be devastating for Cape Cod. And hopefully we can weather that storm. And as you said, the bipartisan support that has typically been there for clean water, emerges and helps us out here. So once again, thank you. And I look forward to our discussions and our deliberations on this topic, which is clearly very important. So thank you.
I really appreciate that. I think also the reality is that anything that the legislature would pass, right, a local option means it comes back to the voters to decide if you want to have this tool. This also may not be a tool that Yarmouth, may vote to have, if we did this tomorrow, right? but it's probably a tool that folks may want to have in the future. I think you will want to have in the future, understanding how this housing crisis has played out across the region, how it's basically, it moves. You can quite actually predict, housing prices are here in Nantucket. About 5 years, they're going to be there on Martha's Vineyard. You see a similar trend with the Outer Cape and the Lower Cape and the Mid Cape. But this really is about having an option that folks are able to tap into, the towns are able to tap into. And so I think that framing is apt and helpful.
Yeah, and if I could just add, Madam Chair, I think the fact that the senator and the delegation are working on this now, this is a time of opportunity, quite frankly, because it's unclear when something like this could get serious attention in the future. So having this tool available to us, whether it's now or at some point in the future, has a huge upside, and so I appreciate you making that very, very clear.
Marcus.
Well, Mark's been very eloquent in his thank you, so I'm going to I'm just going to piggyback and say ditto on what Mark has said. And thank you to you and also to your staff. I don't think a lot of people out there realize without your staff, it would be impossible to do what your office has been able to do for our town. And we thank you all for, there are many, many different things. I might point out, for instance, for folks out there that there's been a lot of difficulty for people collecting unemployment over this summer, and your office has been most helpful in that item, particularly with the bus drivers, with the school employees, and so forth. So thank you, and we will do our diligent best on this. It's a crisis we all understand, and it's only getting worse with housing. Thank you.
Oh, I'd like to thank you for all the education that you've done on the housing and wastewater issues and on the delicate balance with promoting both because they're so connected. I think as a town meeting we would have to, if a home rule petition was granted, we would have to put that through a town meeting. Am I correct? Yes. Okay. I wonder about how long it takes from the filing of a home rule petition with you all up in Boston, how long that might take to get it approved?
So it's a great question, and it really depends. Home rule petitions of sort of a routine matter, right? Think of your land easements, road renaming. Mm-hmm. Those can be about 6 months, 8 months, depending. A home rule like this, right? It's very unlikely that Yarmouth's potential home rule petition or any of these home rule petitions individually would be passed as standalones. Actually, just today, the Joint Committee on Revenue had a hearing on home rule petitions from Nantucket, Chatham, and the 6 island towns. The real point of these home rules is more so to build the case like we did around applying room occupancy taxes to short-term rentals, to really building the case for it. So it could be something that is resolved by the end of this legislative session, which would be late summer 2026. Actually, under our new rules, it would be at the end of the year on 2026. It could be longer, right? Nantucket's been clamoring for this home rule petition, a version of this home rule petition, for over a decade. So we could be in for the long haul. But I think the intention here is to build momentum. And then also, I think, really making the case that Cape Cod and the islands do have unique factors, right? And so if this is something, a lot of the opposition that particularly we hear from the real estate industry and others has been to home rule petitions and the proposal for transfer fees for Boston or Cambridge or Somerville. I think there's an understanding that we have a different series of factors here on the Cape and Islands, and part of my strategy candidly, and I've been working in allyship with my other colleagues from all over the Massachusetts who want this, but also in saying, hey, look, we got a really sort of specific thing going on here that, I think there's a real case to be made for something that's available to the Cape Cod, to the islands, also to some communities in the Berkshires that face sort of similar demands.
Okay, and I had one more question, if I can, Madam Chair. And I ask this of many people who come in front of us. Not your job, but you might have a good opinion on this. How do we bring our Canadian-friendly visitors back?
So I will say just anecdotally, I have heard far more Quebecois French on the streets of Provincetown than I ever expected I would this summer. So
Oh,
I will. There was a family actually I saw over like April vacation, and I saw them at the beach, and they were clearly speaking French, and it's like Quebecois, like and I was like, I wanted to like chase them down and be like, what are you doing here? Like I want to know. There is a very long list of challenges that Cape Codders and Islanders and that people across Massachusetts are facing, given the current administration, and I don't know how we'll. I think Canadians have taken real offense to a number of policies, and I do know in a Massachusetts perspective, Massachusetts and the New England governors have met had meetings with their Canadian premier counterparts. The Senate actually hosted the Consul General of Canada in the Senate. We had conversations, so we're working hard to maintain relationships. I was actually just talking with a colleague. We've been invited to Quebec for a housing summit later this fall that I plan to attend. So I'm trying to keep those good relations and contacts from a New England perspective, notwithstanding the federal environment.
thank you.
Thank you.
Liz?
Thank you, Mike and company back there. Thank you so much for being with us, and Julian, thank you always for picking up the phone and being available. So my understanding is we are, when we talked about we might get something by the end of the year so it can be on town meeting. That's getting seasonal community
Seasonal communities.
status.
Yep.
Now, there's no guarantee we're going to get it. What do we need to do to help make sure we do get it? Because if we don't get it, and that leads to my next question, which is, how is not having seasonal communities status, might that affect our home rule petition? In that this is a whole group that you're trying to get some momentum, and all of a sudden Yarmouth is an outlier.
So I don't know if it would necessarily affect the home rule petition per se. They're sort of they're related, but they're sort of separate endeavors. I have the honor of chairing now the Joint Committee on Housing. The Senate President really wants the Senate to be taking action on housing, and I am working very closely with Secretary Ed Augustus with Housing and Livable Communities. I was on a call with them yesterday about draft seasonal community regulations. I was on a call with them today on emergency shelter, assistance shelter programs, and housing for homeless families. I'm with them on Thursday. I have pretty strong contacts and collaboration with these folks. I would be very surprised if Yarmouth isn't offered an opportunity to join seasonal communities. If you look at the statutory, criteria, y'all meet it. And if for some reason that opportunity wasn't extended through the administration, Representative Kip Diggs has a bill that would automatically designate towns like Yarmouth and Barnstable as seasonal communities. So I would not lose too much sleep over that.
Okay.
And I don't like to brag, but your state senator could not be better positioned on housing issues as it relates to our relationships, in the Healy-Driscoll administration with Governor Healy, Lieutenant Governor Driscoll, who spent a ton of time here. Former State Representative Sarah Peake is now a senior advisor to Governor Healy and working in her office. So I think residents of Yarmouth and Cape Codders as a whole should feel very well positioned in the legislature on these issues.
Okay. And I would note, too, that we, September 24th is the special hearing for the Assembly of Delegates, and they would be filing their own home rule petition, which, again, would be also more impetus, more pressure from this side of the bridges. So I think I'll try to be there on September 24th to give Yarmouth a face there. And one last question that will take us a little bit away, but because you've done such a great job with this, we have talked a little bit, and we have some studies coming back about our seasonal rental issue and how we can even it out a little bit better, disincentivize or incentivize to try to get more opportunities for year-round rentals and not have so many empty homes during the winter when people are just as needy. Is there anything at the state level? I don't want to take too much away from what we're working on here with the transfer fee, but
So there's a lot you can actually do at the local level. And I'm not immediately familiar with how Yarmouth is regulating your short-term rentals, but I would encourage you to look to towns like Provincetown, now Wellfleet and Eastham, that are implementing lease-to-local programs where the town is effectively going to landlords or homeowners who may be renting their homes out on a short-term basis and giving a financial incentive to bridge the gap. A whole host of these housing incentives, if you look at what some of these towns have done, a lot of it's around, sort of carrot approaches around incentivizing year-round homeowners, incentivizing year-round home rentals. There's actually, in that tax bill I talked about earlier, there's also a tax credit available to, it's a local option property tax credit that can be given to landlords who are renting year-round at reasonable rates. So these are all part of the tools that we hope towns can bring to bear on the housing crisis. The depth of the crisis is so, we're in a pretty deep hole, right? There's not a silver bullet on this issue. I think we're going to need to have lease to local incentives, deed restrictions, a whole host of things to bring to bear. The transfer fee effectively just would give you the money to pay for it, right? So, it would be a big infusion in revenue where you could say, all right, we're going to launch a pretty robust lease to locals program in Yarmouth. You'd have more money for that. Yeah. But there's some really good innovative work happening across the region, especially on incentives. And I think particularly in a place like Yarmouth where there is a little more affordability in the market compared to elsewhere, I think those incentives make a ton of sense. And if we can connect, you don't need our authorization to do them. You can do them today. And if we can connect town administration with other towns who are doing this, we're delighted to. Really, I think it's an all above. I really see this as an all above approach to solve the problem.
Great.
Thanks. Yes. Just for the public, I have to say thank you, because every single time I've ever called or texted, you are readily available and there for us, which, we're lacking on the legislative side. So very much appreciated you doing the extra work and representing us. We talked, a little bit. I'm never jazzed about new taxes, right? So I love the words incentivize. I think that's always the approach, but I think it's our due diligence to put that. It's not about me, it's about putting, options before the people of the town to see what it is that they want us to do. So we take our direction from them. So I'm looking forward to having the discussion amongst our board in the near future, hopefully, to talk about, some of the options. Having the study that we're in the midst of come back, I think also will be helpful as a piece of this. So, I always have questions about, you talked about Vail and other states implementing it, and I always wonder what the negative effects sometimes could potentially be with any action. There's always some type of reaction, and, essentially you're adding to the cost of a house, so you're doubling the issue. So, I've made my comments known about people who, we have to look at it, people who are utilizing it as a business, just not one home that they may have, but there are people who have multiple homes, as you mentioned, that are high dollar. I would be more comfortable with that, but that's a discussion for another night. And we have, Bob, do you have anything you want to add to the conversation about our study that we're in the middle for him?
Well, the one thing that has been great is that we have been working with our colleagues in the other communities, and we went down and had some meetings with, I think Provincetown has shown some tremendous leadership on this issue, and we've piggybacked on their study of short-term rentals that they conducted in their community, and we've also got the UMass Donahue Institute involved with us doing the study right now, and they've been conducting all of their interviews, and they're going to come back to us with some recommendations that we hope to form as the basis for some potential additional regulation. And I just wanted to mention as well, the comments that you made really struck home on the seasonal community delegation. We honestly did feel a little bit left out in the initial legislation, but we are extremely mindful of all of your efforts that, to work with housing and livable communities to create the additional criteria for those communities that fell just short of that 35% threshold of how many homes are seasonal in our community. And we also see that as a seasonal community, there are some additional tools that include the further regulation of the seasonal home mix, and those would be easily applied. So we would look forward very much, when we see those regulations, and I know the task force has been addressing that as well. And so we look forward to working with you to make sure that we are designated as a seasonal community, just to open up that toolkit. We hope that between having the results of our analysis of the seasonal home market, having the additional discussions of possible home rule petitions, as well as the seasonal housing restriction possibility, that all of those open up some real opportunities for us to address some things. And additionally, as a seasonal community, this board, I think, has shown tremendous leadership, and it's reflected in their priority goals to develop housing for our municipal workforce that is really struggling. I mean, recruitment is just becoming harder and harder. And as you said, this is the most affordable town, and we still are struggling. And so as a seasonal community, it really opens up additional programs that we can use to attack that, workforce housing, where it's, you're dealing in that 120% plus of the median income, where, you're not below, but you also can't afford a home based on what your income level is. So that's very valuable as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much for coming. Do
Thank
you have
you so-
anything else you want to say?
One, we'll just send over some examples of home rules that other towns have put forward that I think will be more helpful than the sort of statewide legislation, which gets into a whole host of negotiations happening around a whole host of other housing issues. And then I just want to be really clear. Transfer fee is but one tool in what we need to bring to bear on housing, right? And so seasonal communities is one tool that we've delivered. A number of towns are pursuing and have pursued zoning changes, accessory dwelling units, a whole list of other pieces. And so I'm very much about like an all of the above approach. How do you bring as many tools as possible, to our towns, and how do we figure out a way to ensure that Cape Cod and also the islands can remain livable places? And then how do we pay for a lot of this stuff, right? Not just on the backs of year-round Cape Codders and our property taxpayers. How do you find sort of other people's money, in part, especially with the visitors who come here or the seasonal residents who maybe have, to ensure that this can be a year-round livable place. But, transfer fee is not a panacea, and it really takes, I think, the collaboration, the looking to other towns for shared incentives. I'm really excited to hear about this report and what's going to be coming there. What's really interesting about Provincetown, there's a real push in Provincetown, I'll end on this, to actually cap short-term rentals, or sort of take some pretty kind of strict regulation of short-term rentals. What they did instead is they actually put in place some common sense restrictions, right? You can't have more than two, a few other provisions. And then they implemented this pretty strong incentive program. The number of short-term rental licenses in Provincetown has decreased, has not increased actually, because of this approach that was taken with the work of the Donahue Institute and others. So, if ever we can be helpful on these issues or on a myriad of others, from wastewater to unemployment, to help for businesses during, under distress, that's what we're aiming to do. We're trying to work twice as hard. I'm really mindful that Yarmouth and Dennis and Brewster don't have adequate representation in the House of Representatives. I'm hoping that changes and soon. But until then, my great team and I will be working as hard as we can to be good partners to all of you. So I really appreciate the invitation. I know we took a lot of time.
We appreciate you
We are always
very
at
much.
your
Thank
disposal.
you. You'll be hearing from us.
Yep, great, awesome.
Thank
All
you
right,
very
thank you
much.
so much.
Thank you.
Okay, we are going to move to our 6:35 hearing, a one-day special entertainment license, and I'm going to read the public notice into the record, and if you could come forward, that would be great. The Town of Yarmouth Select Board Special Alcohol and Entertainment Licensing Hearing. The Yarmouth Select Board, acting as the local licensing authority, has received an application from Robert Harding, DBA Dream Day of Cape Cod, P.O. Box 737, Yarmouthport, Mass. 02645, which is incorrect, for a special one-day malt alcohol license for an Oktoberfest for Dream Day of Cape Cod fundraiser at the Skull Island Adventure Golf and Sports World, 934 Main Street, South Yarmouth, 02664, on Saturday, October 4th, 2025, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. The applicant also requests a special one-day entertainment license for the event to have 2 local live bands, up to 5 musicians with amplification system. The hearing will be held on Tuesday, September 9th at Town Hall, 1146 Route 28, South Yarmouth, Mass. The Select Board meeting begins at 6 p.m. Written comments will be accepted until 4:30 on Friday, September 5th, in the Select Board office at Town Hall, and can be submitted electronically to public comment at yarmouth.ma.us. Verbal comments will be accepted at the meeting. With that, we will open the public hearing and allow you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you're applying for today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Bob Harding, and this is Dale Orman. I've been a volunteer with Dream Day for, I guess, close to 20 years, and I've had the good pleasure of being co-event chairs with Dale, who is a founding board member of Dream Day. I know you probably all know about Dream Day, but I think it's a very unique organization, unlike it, where where the camp takes care of children who are facing life-threatening illnesses and provides them and their family for a one-week getaway camping experience at the Dream Day Camp, which is in Nickerson Park. The camp itself is provided, its funding is totally provided by donations and through fundraisers. And like I say, Dale and I have done a number of these events. I take all the credit, he does all the work, and it's worked out pretty well so far.
Seems like a perfect marriage.
Something like that, you know. But it's going to be an event that we look at. It's not just a fundraiser. I think it's going to be great for the town. This will bring together a whole lot of folks. We've reached out to a lot of local businesses, local chamber. I see Mary here. Her and her staff have been very helpful. We're reaching out to other nonprofits, asking for their support as well to make this, a big fun event. And we're going to have local bands and some music. The schedule has changed a little, Madam Chair. It's 11 to 4. Originally it was 10, but it's now 11 to 4. And Dale can tell you a lot more about the mechanics of all that in terms of what time folks are coming on. He knows all. He's been working with the food trucks and the beer vendors and the bands. So I'll turn it over to Dale.
Okay. Yes, as Bob said, I've been with the board since 1993 when our inception. And the way we raise funds is do a myriad of events. We've done pretty much everything over the years, from car washes to festivals to fishing tournaments, golf tournaments, etc. At the camp, we do 64 families every summer. So to date, we've done well over 1,000 families that we've supported at no cost to them. All of our stuff is free. So I appreciate you considering this, and I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
Okay. So in the packet, we have all the tips certification. It looks like Oliver's is doing your alcohol service and your catering, so to speak, for the alcohol. Can you just talk about how the service will be contained and how they're going to manage that?
So we have a 40 by 60 tent for the main activities, and then we're going to have a separate cordoned off area we're calling the beer garden. And there'll be a wristband to get into the beer garden. You'll have to go through an ID checker to get that wristband, and only those people will be allowed in that section of the property.
Okay, excellent. And do you want to talk about also we can take them individually, or we can talk about them together, because you also have the bands and amplification, the setup of how that will be on the property, traffic flow, is there enough parking still?
Yes, I believe they have 170 parking spaces, and this is a first year, so we don't know how many people will be there, but we're hoping at least a couple of hundred. The band will be on a stage, which is a professional portable stage that's been donated to us from a gentleman down in Orleans. He has 2 of these stages, so the stage is all contained, and it's at the back side of the property over by the Stop and Shop area. So I don't believe there are any abutters that will actually hear much of any kind of volume.
Okay, well, 11 to 4 during the day is a very amenable time usually for music and fun, right?
Hopefully they'll
So
enjoy
for
it.
the board, we got this at our packet today that talked about the tent, the beer garden, the entrance, the parking, just for everybody's knowledge. I am going to take a moment, if it's okay with the board, to go to the public first before we ask the board. Is there anybody here from the public that would like to speak on the application for either the alcohol or entertainment license? For or against? Okay. Seeing none, I'll take a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Liz, do you have any questions?
No, I do not. I look forward to it. And I know if Tom's involved, it'll be great. So thank you for all of the very important,
Thank you.
good work.
Thank you.
Joyce, do you have any questions?
No, just, it sounds like a wonderful cause and a wonderful thing that you do every year. And just in case anyone's watching on television, if you wanted to mention ticket prices and how to get them, this would be a chance.
You don't?
Cross that bridge yet.
So $25
Oh, I'm sorry.
per individual,
I thought you said something. I apologize.
which includes mini golf and everything that goes with it.
$25.
And then a family of 3 is 40, additional children are $10 each.
Excellent.
And where would they go, online or in person, to get these?
So we're, after this hearing tonight, we'll start publicizing that. All kinds of social media,
Oh, great.
Eventbrite, our website, and just to clarify, our organization is called Dream Day on Cape Cod. If you Google that, it'll be the first 10 things you see. But yeah, it'll be splashed out there pretty well.
Okay,
We
thank
also
you.
have a pretty aggressive radio spot campaign the last week of the month and before that. So, we hope we have a lot of energy and we get a good turnout. So, can I just say one thing, if you don't mind? First of all, it's Amy's first job. Her first application coming in, and she's been terrific. I also want to tell you, Pam Barnes. I'd be remiss if I didn't say anything about Pam Barnes. She's just been great because he's done this a number of times. Me, I've never worked on licensing issues. I did work with Dakota before, but Pam has gone way overboard to make it a lot easier, and I just wanted to let you know that.
Thank you very much for saying that. We appreciate it very much. They're wonderful. Dorcas, do you have any questions?
I only want to say that I think it's a fantastic organization, and I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank you.
And I hope you all attend.
Yes, I wrote it down.
With that, I will accept a motion, please. The only amendment I would say to the motion would be that we're changing the hours, both. I would just want to make sure, because one application said 12 to 7, and that's for the alcohol. Do you want it to be 12 to 7 to have time to get it in and out? Should we leave it at 12 to 7? And then the entertainment license from 11 to 4? Would that be?
Just to be
I
on
think
the-
that's probably safe.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so we'll take a motion with that amendment of just changing the entertainment license from 11 to 4.
So moved that we change the time of the alcohol license to 12 to 7 and entertainment license 11 to 4.
Is there a second on the motion?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Wish you the best of luck. I hope it's very well attended and very successful. It's such a great cause.
Thanks a lot, Bob.
Thank you. Our next hearing is for the Harry Potter experience at the Cultural Center. Hello. Hello. Okay, so I'm gonna read the advertisement into the record. The Town of Yarmouth Select Board, special alcohol license hearing. The Yarmouth Select Board, acting as the local licensing authority, has received an application from the Cultural Center of Cape Cod, Meg McNamara, Director of Business Operations, for a special alcohol license to serve and sell all types of alcohol at 307 Old Main Street, South Yarmouth, Mass. 02664 on October 16th, 17th, and 18th of 2025 from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. for the theatrical event Harry Potter event. The hearing will be held Tuesday, September 9th, 2025, in the hearing room of Town Hall, 1146 Route 28, South Yarmouth. The Select Board's meeting begins at 6 p.m. Written comments will be accepted till 4:30 on September 5th, 2025, in the Select Board's office. Town Hall could be submitted electronically to publiccomment@yarmouth.ma.us. This was advertised in Cape Cod Times on August 27th. With that, we will open the public hearing and let you introduce yourself. Everybody knows who you are, but and tell us a little bit about what you want to do.
Absolutely. My name is Molly DeMillionaire, Executive Director here at the Cultural Center of Cape Cod. Thank you for having me tonight. And the title's actually changed. It's actually going back to the Edgar Allan Poe. I think that was submitted. So we hosted that event also in February of this year, and there was no incidents, but it was really popular, and so the company decided to do a 2.0 of Edgar Allan Poe. So
Edgar
4
Allan
new
Poe
plays.
2.0. I like it. I like it. It has a ring to it.
It does, right? And so it will be inside the Great Hall. It's all an inside event, and everyone is ID'd before they walk into the door, so there's no worry of people being under 21 inside the venue at all. And it's a theatrical performance, and we're really excited to have them back.
That's great. I see your TIPS certification, your certificate of insurance, all of your paperwork is in order. I will see if anybody from the public has any comments for this application, either for or against. Seeing nobody online, I will take a motion to.
Move we close the hearing, Madam Chair.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, with that, we will see if anybody on the board has any questions about the event. Liz?
I want to be there. That's about all I can say.
You're welcome.
It sounds like a fun event. Thank you.
Excellent. Dorcas?
I love Edgar Allan Poe 2.0. Sounds great.
Mo.
Bob,
Sounds like,
everyone's a poet.
no, it sounds great, and I hope it goes well.
All right, great. With that, I will take a motion on the application.
Madam Chair,
Is there a second?
Dorcas got in there first, second.
All right, any discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you for coming,
Thank
and
you so
wish you the
much.
best of luck.
Thank you.
All right, next we're going to go to our 7:05 hearing for the annual tax classification hearing. And with that, I am going to also read the hearing notice. I see our assessor and Tara here tonight. Okay. So the Town of Yarmouth Annual Tax Classification Hearing, under Chapter 40, Section 56, as amended by Chapter 369 of the Acts of 1982 and Chapter 79 of the Acts of 1983, the Town of Yarmouth Select Board will conduct a public hearing on whether the Town of Yarmouth should implement the Tax Classification Act. Said hearing to be conducted on Tuesday, September 9th, 2025 at 6 p.m., Yarmouth Town Hall Hearing Room, 1146 Route 28, South Yarmouth. At the hearing, the Select Board will hear testimony as to what will be the residential factor, which will determine the share of taxes each classification of property will pay, what will be open space factor, and whether to adopt a residential or small commercial exemption, per the order of the Yarmouth Select Board. All right, with that, I will turn it over to Tara. If you want to introduce yourself.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Very loud.
That's a good thing.
You just let me know when it's
Oh,
too
you're
much.
fine. I think
Okay.
it's great that people can hear you.
Yes, they can. My name is Tara Monroe, and I am the Assistant Assessor. We're here this evening because we're currently in the process of setting the tax rate, which we do annually at this time of the year in order to issue the first half tax bill. After the budgeting process and town meeting take place, the next step in the process is for the assessors to determine through real estate market activities what the value of all property in the town should be. Once the values are computed, they are reviewed by the Department of Revenue for approval and certification. Our values have been submitted, and approval was granted on Friday, September 5th. Towns that are certified by the Department of Revenue as assessing at full and fair cash value must decide whether or not to tax all of the classes of property at the same rate, which is commonly referred to as adopting a factor of 1, or to shift the burden amongst the rest of the classes. You, as our local officials, have the option of shifting the tax burden of the commercial, industrial, and personal property anywhere from 1 to 50%. This would create two different tax rates, one for the residential class of properties and one for the commercial class of properties. And there, you do have a graphic in your packet that actually illustrates the shift. The Board of Assessors did vote at their meeting on July 31st to recommend the Select Board a factor of 1 and to reject the residential and small commercial exemption at the July 31st meeting. Their feeling is that the fairest way to tax people is to tax everybody at the same rate, to tax everybody the same. So in conclusion, I can tell you that to date, the Town of Yarmouth's policy has been to adopt a factor of 1 and to reject the small commercial and residential exemptions. And with that being said, I'm happy to answer any questions, or I'm here as a team, we are happy to answer any questions you may have.
Excellent, thank you. And everybody has we have this every year. Unfortunately, our commercial rate is at a 4.91%, which has been unfortunately declining over many years. And for a split tax rate of any sort really to work, you have to have I'll use Mark's word, a more robust commercial classification. I know that there have been other towns, Bob and I were talking about it recently, that are also looking at a residential exemption. That is something that I think, up to this board whether or not they want to have a discussion on that at some point in the future, but I'm of the mindset that needs to be in conjunction with a bigger planning process of potentially, offsetting a phase 2 sewer or something of the sort. But having said that, does anybody have any questions for Tara before I go to the public?
Go ahead, Mark.
No, I just wanted to echo, Chairman, your comments. I do think at some point, given all the major financial challenges that we're facing, with the next 2 phases of wastewater, we have needs related to a new fire station, a new library is on the docket, and now we're talking about a new school. So schools, firefighting, it's just, we've got a lot. And if you look at what we've just passed, 2 years ago, we adopted $207 million in debt for our first phase of wastewater. So we're in uncharted waters here. And I think one of the things that we're going to have to do as a board is look at all of our options to make sure that whatever ultimately the voters decide we're going to do on each of these items and other items in the future, that we need to take a look at the exemption, but in the context of a broader plan, as the chairman has stated. I think that's the forum for that discussion. While I think we're always interested in hearing what our Board of Assessors has to say, this question is part of a much larger conversation that we have to have about how we meet some of these long-term obligations in financial, fairly sizable, large financial, items. So, and I welcome having more of that discussion. We've talked about in short order, doing some more long-range financial planning. And while this may not be part of those initial discussions, I think the more we spend time focused on our long-term financial planning, the more this is going to come up as a topic. And I think we're going to want to look at it in a very broad way, not necessarily in a narrow sense in terms of equity in any one particular year, but looking at it as part of the bigger picture and the financial burdens that Yarmouth residents are going to have to wrestle with. So thank you.
I appreciate the work that you've put into this, and it's just so troubling to see that residential 92.7% of the total amounts that we take in. We've got to work on that nut before we really look at anything else. How do we take that commercial and raise that number significantly from where it is?
Hopefully, the sewer will help with that.
That's our goal.
That's our hope, is that the sewer will help. But I agree with my fellow board members that it's the long-term plan that we have to make. We can't really single out one year and look at it. So I take seriously the recommendations of the Board of Assessors here for this particular year, but stress also how we need to be looking down the road. What are we going to do? Because we just keep having these expenses that are coming before us. And I thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tara. Thank you, Andy. Good work. I have a question that came up the other day, and this is going to sound crazy, but you've heard how concerned we are about finances. Someone asked, what would happen if, with the town, would there be a way to do this, if they paid future property taxes? They could only estimate, of course, because of annual town meeting, but also even paid their sewer hookup, even if they weren't for 2 more stages. Would that be of any help to town finance? And I'm
that's a
counting
little
on the
over
whole
my
dream
head.
team here to answer this.
Hi, Jennifer Mullen, Finance Director. We're pretty limited on, when we bill for property taxes, we create a receivable. To get money in for future property taxes, you're taking it away from the future and bringing it in now. So that really isn't an option. Paying for the sewer hookup, first of all, what they'll be paying will be for a betterment, and that will be for a larger discussion. So what will happen is 6 months before you're completed with with the project, we'll assess a betterment to the to the homeowners, and then they can pay that up front, or they can pay that over 30 years, whatever is affordable to them, the betterment that will pay for the project. If they pay it up front, we can put it in a separate fund and then draw down on that to help pay off the debt. Their sewer hookup, and when they'll be paying that privately, that won't come to us. They'll have to, once we get ready for, they lay the sewer line and then they'll hook up to the sewer. When we're ready to take flow, they only can do that when we're ready to take flow. They will have to call a plumber. and get that hooked up, and then they pay the plumber. But as Senator Sear said earlier, which I thought would be pretty informational, is new legislation is helping with Title V, can assist homeowners with that. That's where they're, it can be expensive for them to hook up, but they wouldn't give us the money to hook up. They'd have to do that privately, because you're bringing on a contractor onto their private land. It's not something we would do.
Would there be any way to prepay the betterment portion?
They can if they want, but when you think about it, you want to make it affordable. So say the betterment, and I'm just pulling this out, I have no idea, so I'm going to use a really low number. Say it's $10,000. To tell homeowners, they can pay it in advance if they can afford it. We give them the option. You can pay it in advance, or you can pay it over 30 years, whatever you can afford. But I don't think we can mandate them to pay the whole amount up front.
I just want to make sure we stick with the tax classification.
I
appreciate that.
Saw everybody there and pounced. Thank you.
And did you have any questions for Tara on the?
Joyce, are you
Oh, I did not, no. I was impressed with what we have, and I felt I should go out and found an industry on Route 28, but
You should.
yeah, that's a long-term goal, Tara.
It is.
I'm new to the tax process, so I'm going to ask what the example based on FY26 values, the effect of the shift at 150%.
Okay, let me just switch over to that page. I sure can. What, you just want an overall explanation of how it works?
Well, what are you showing us here? Is this, if it was, instead of a factor of 1, if it was a factor of 1.5?
This, okay, so what this is illustrating for you is if you voted to implement the shift at the 50%, so this is showing you the effect of that 50% to the commercial, industrial, personal property class. It's showing you that the change at the end of the day, if you want, I'm certainly happy to walk you through each line.
No, just the big picture.
The big picture is the highlight at the bottom right-hand corner. And what that is showing you is if that shift were adopted, so you're looking at 150%, what it would do for the residents, if you're using your property value, that $710,000 is the average property value. So using those two comparables, $710,000 per class, using those values, it would lower the residential taxes almost $200, less than $200, if you will. What it would do to the same commercial property is it would increase their taxes by roughly $2,500. So that's what that illustration is.
Businesses, last thing they need is that.
And you see that on the top, that tax rate? I think that's very telling, is that for just a 27-cent reduction in the residential, you're taking the commercial tax rate and jacking it up, over $3.50, almost $4. So for a small, when you have such a small commercial, any movement on that, a tiny movement on the residential creates a spike.
Right. I moved that the town of Yarmouth, oh, wait a minute, I have to go to the public. I forgot. Is there anybody at the public that would like to speak on the tax classification?
Madam Chair, I move we close the public hearing.
I see nobody on Zoom. Is there a second?
Second. Sorry.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Is there any more discussion that the board would like to have?
No, I would just like to say thank you. Thank you for the education, too.
I move that the town of Yarmouth continue to tax all classes at the same rate by adopting a factor of 1 and to reject the residential exemption and the small commercial exemption.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? I move to authorize the use of signature stamp for tax rate forms and authorize the Director of Finance to sign for the Select Board electronically.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. We did just want to mention, we do appreciate your feedback, and we will bring it forward to the Board of Assessors as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Tara.
Great. Next, we
Thank you
have, yes, thank you, Andy and Tara. Next, we have our proposed plastics reduction regulation. I see our team here. Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening, folks.
Thank you for coming in tonight to discuss the proposal, so to speak. If you want to introduce your group to us and just tell us a little bit about what we have here for consideration, that would be great.
Be happy to do that. Thank you very much. Good evening. My name is Jamie Vieira. It was my privilege to serve as the chair of the Plastics Bylaw Review Task Force. The task force, for your memory, was commissioned by this board back, I think, in late May, early June, for purposes of evaluating the current petitioned bylaw regarding the reduction of plastics in food establishments, and to come back to this board with certain recommendations in connection with that existing bylaw, and whether or not it was to be a recommendation to keep that in place or come up with a substitute. I'm speaking in generalities here. That task force was then commissioned by this board. It was put together by the town administrator, and it consisted of the following individuals here in the town, in this order, that was presented. Mark Forrest was the select board member. Peter Malpass, the Community and Economic Development Committee. Mary Craig, who was a member of the Yarmouth Board of Health. Mike Davis, owner of Bagels and Beyond. Aidan Delaney of the Skipper Chowder House. Jay Gardner, who you're familiar with, now working with the County of Barnstable. Bill Glass, Yarmouth Recycling Committee. Barry Lewis from the Health Department. Haley O'Neill, who was the petitioner of the existing bylaw. Jill Talladay, the community representative. Christina Dwyer from Stop and Shop. Myself. And Mary Vilbon, the president and CEO of the Yarmouth Chamber of Commerce. We got to work quickly because we had a compressed amount of time. The first task that the bylaw took on, I will admit to all of you, was to learn a little bit more about plastic, because we were commissioned with the task of creating a regulation that dealt with products that came in plastic, food service establishments, and it'd be amazing to learn that we weren't just talking about knives, food, forks, spoons, and plastic cups. We took some time at the beginning to carefully look at the 7 different types of plastics that exist, and we felt it was important that if we were going to come up with something, we needed to know exactly what it is that we were talking about. And I want to thank the folks at Stop and Shop who took some time at meetings, and I forgot to point out Liz, and I apologize, Liz, for your involvement at the time of those meetings as well. My apologies. We took a lot of time at the beginning to learn just exactly what the different types were with actual examples. And I will tell you, it was an eye-opening experience to see at those meetings the things that are in plastic that under the current regulation would be prohibited from use by consumers in this town, retailers in this town, and business operators in this town. It was alarming. One note, the folks at Stop and Shop represented that close to 30 to 35% of some of the products they sell in that store would be unavailable to be sold to the public in town if the current regulation stayed in place. That is a large, significant number. So once we learned what it is that we were actually looking to address, we wanted to come to a resolution and a consensus of what was the best way to address the circumstance of reducing plastics, but also having a fair balance to the business community so that there are circumstances where conditions such as the inability to get an alternative, cost prohibitive nature of getting an alternative, we had to balance food safety alternatives as well, because sometimes things are in plastic, not because they're in favor of plastic, but because it provides longevity, it prevents bacterial growth, and it is a health factor that plastic actually helps support, and that is the product that it best comes in. So we didn't want to trade off one thing of reducing plastics and then increasing food waste either. So we had to talk about different balances. Each of the committee members, we went out and we looked as far and wide as we could for different alternatives as the starting point for what we were going to do. What we then decided collectively was that we were going to recommend to this board that the town adopt, through the Board of Health, a health regulation, not a general regulation, but a health regulation, and it is enclosed in your packets, a disposable plastic foodware rules and regulations for food establishments. And it was the work of the committee meeting sometimes every other week under this compressed period of time, taking models and pieces from other towns and other communities and other states and balancing all of the interests and presenting to you this evening what we believe is our recommendation of a health regulation to be submitted to the Board of Health for their adoption and approval as a health regulation. We recently met with the Board of Health in advance of this and brought this to their attention. Now, they didn't vote on it. All we did was bring it to their attention of what it was we were intending to do, and I can report back it was unanimously acted upon favorably in terms of saying they supported the concept. Now, they couldn't act on it because we need this board to adopt the recommendation, because our task was to bring it to you and you decide what you would like to do. So I am happy to answer any questions. I don't think we have to go through chapter and verse. I will if you'd like to, but I'll spare that for anyone who has any questions about it. I will tell you that if this board proceeds in the fashion of moving as a health regulation, we took the initiative to get ourselves on the agenda for the Board of Health at their meeting of 9/15 next Monday night. Why? It's been noticed, advertised, and a public hearing. Last point, what happens next? Assuming that this board approves this process and this regulation to go forward. If the Board of Health approves it on the 15th of September, it is now an approved health regulation in the town of Yarmouth. There is now a conflicting general bylaw that's on effect. And after vetting with town council's recommendation would be, assuming the passage of the health regulation, a warrant article would be placed on the fall town meeting, merely asking the voters to rescind the general bylaw that is currently there. And then you would have a health regulation in effect, effective January 1, 2026, that implements a process that we think is fair, balanced, and achieves the objective of reducing plastics while maintaining all the things that we talked about that helps the business community get to that goal in a way that is beneficial not only to them, but to the consumers and the general public. So I'll stop with that and take any questions that any of you may have. Thank you.
Great, that was a wonderful, succinct representation of where you're going and where you've been. So we'll open it up to the board. Mark?
Sure, thank you.
Participating.
And I enjoyed being designated as the board's representative, and I too appreciate Liz's participation as well. I think it's important that I just say this right out front, that I want to thank you for all the time and energy and effort that you have put into this. You all have done a great job in tackling this problem, coming together, working with the business community, and you're right to give thanks to the supermarkets and the others who participated in this effort from the business community, because they did a great job in educating us all. I think what you've proposed, the structure of this, is going to be the model, assuming town meeting and others, take their actions. But I honestly believe we've figured out the way to deal with this, and that is through this process. And I learned a lot from the example of the town of Falmouth. Falmouth tried to do something, and they made a misstep, and they ran into some problems, and they went back to the drawing board. And I think it was great to have them share with us, their experience. And so their regulations are now going into effect. Our regulations and theirs look very similar, and they're going into effect. And I think generally there's been a fair amount of praise and support for what they're trying to do. So the fact that we've been able to work together and learn from them, I think, has been a huge advantage for us. And so kudos to the town of Falmouth for their work and their effort as well, and their help for us. So I fully support where we stand on this. I think this makes the most sense. And I think for the folks that are interested and frustrated over the amount of plastic pollution, because it's obviously it's there. We're all well aware of it. What I like about the way this has been crafted is the regulations create almost a climate for improvement, because once one business figures out a way to deal with some of the plastics that are a little tricky, once that's figured out, there's an incentive automatically set up in this program for others to follow suit. So it incentivizes progress towards plastic reduction. And we use the marketplace, we use the health department. The health department's a big player in this. So I think the way we've structured it, the way it's been put together, I think it's well thought out, and I think it creates an environment and a climate that promotes plastic reduction in a sensible way. People should not look at this as allowing us backsliding or allowing people to get away with something. No, we've created a much smarter system and process, I think, and I think it's a credit to everybody who's been involved in this effort. So thank you very, very much.
Dorcas?
I would like to thank the businesses that spent so much time on this proposal. You had to sacrifice time from your businesses at the peak time when you're needed. That's a tremendous sacrifice, and I really appreciate the efforts that you put in there. And I am very happy to see that what we're going to have going forward, I'm assuming that we'll be passing this, is something that could actually be acted upon. You know, we were kind of in a great limbo before, and I think now this is a step in the right direction, and I'm sure Barry and his crew is happy to see that we'll have, something that we could really work from. I stress, though, that this is going to be the time for education and communication. I think it's going to be critically important to get that out there. Whenever and however you can do it. Handouts, snippets on YouTube, whatever, because there's just a great passion out there for many people on the plastics, and we certainly saw that at our last town meeting. And so I think they need to understand that we're on their side, that we are moving toward that goal, and that this is a sensible way of doing it. So as Mark was saying, he learned a tremendous amount from sitting there on your committee. That just points to the fact of how important education is going to be.
Madam Chair, if I may, on that point, at our last few meetings, we had an opportunity to talk with town staff in the communication department about putting things on the town website in connection with this proposed regulation. And all of our meetings were televised and recorded, and you can find them and watch that process if you wanted. So we've really stressed the transparency of what we're doing here. And now going forward, the effort after Monday night is successful, assuming, is to do just that, is to educate not just what the bylaw is all about, but what it is that we are trying to accomplish here. So we've already been working with the staff on that, crafting the messages and getting that all put together before 1/1.
I thank you for that, and I just point out, Bob's videos before we get ready for town meeting are a good example of going forward, and perhaps really getting Stop and Shop involved with showing some of those containers. A show and tell always can make a big difference, and again, YouTube becomes a very popular vehicle for being able to do that, certainly with links to the town website and so forth. But thank you. I appreciate the hard work, and I know at what great sacrifice it must have come to at this time of the year. So thank you.
Joyce?
Thank you for your work. I know that you're under a lot of time pressure and a lot of pressure from conflicting constituencies on this. I would certainly tend to support anything that was supported by our Assistant Health Director and by the Board of Health, even though I'm terrified that when I sneeze, I'm sneezing PFAS at everyone around me. But it's definitely a start, and I hope it'll make Yarmouth healthier.
Liz?
I was really happy to be included in the process, despite the fact that I wasn't officially on the committee. Mary, you were great, and Jamie, what great leadership. And I wanted to be a part of the process because I'm one of the skeptics, and I was firmly behind those who said it's a ban. We're banning plastics. And sitting with you all and listening to Mike Davis and Aidan Delaney, and they worked right next to everybody trying to find solutions. And by gosh, if there aren't solutions emerging every day that are new, it's really rather exciting. So this is a process. And I think we had discussed, and I hope that we'll stand firm, that this committee will continue to meet regularly to review changes and improvements that can be brought on board as we move towards what we hope will someday be a plastics ban, because that's where the all of the businesses want to go, but it can't be overnight. So I think it's the solution, and I look forward to meeting as we go forward to keep improving it. Thank you.
Thanks. Just on that point, I think the charge was just to bring it to, I don't think that their charge is after the fact that this is brought to some resolution. So I think if it's a Board of Health regulation, it would be in the purview of the Board of Health to keep, honing it to, they're going to probably see a lot of requests that they may find that they need to address somehow in their own policy. My question is, first of all, thank you all for your work, and thank you for Haley for getting this ball rolling. The January 1st date, I agree with your assessment about having it. I'm hopeful that it will be in place before we bring it to a rescission, obviously, the policy itself. But the effective date, I'm just concerned about whether or not, we're in September. That doesn't really give the businesses a lot of time. Again, not that I'm trying to kick the can down the road, but I just would like to hear your thought process as to why the January 1st date was chosen.
First, if the Board of Health adopts it at its meeting on the 15th, it becomes effective on the 15th, and it is now a health regulation. We chose that effective date because we thought that, one, it coincides with the 1/1 date. We also felt it important that we had it in place, and to bear in mind, one of the things we thought was important was that this is education, and it is a slow process to get started. It's a slow time of the year in January. We thought it gave it, while it's in place, it had some meaning, it had effectiveness. We weren't kicking the can down the road, as it were, and giving people ample time from September to March to learn what's in it, how to work with it. We talked about things of how to work through inventory that people already had in place so that they weren't impacted financially to meet the requirements of it on a given day. Again, because what you have now is an absolute. And what we've crafted is the ability to get time to come into compliance. And so we chose the date so that it lined up with the other one, so it didn't look like we were foot dragging, number one. And we think that between now and March, we'll call it, that's more than enough time for people to get a grip on what it is that they need to do, talk to the health director about waivers and variances in advance of it, work through their inventory, and get it so that it's impactful and not just something that was so, I'll use the word draconian, that it almost wouldn't have the effect. It would almost have the worst unintended consequences. So that's why we chose the date.
Okay. All right, you sound pretty confident about that. My fear is that the bugs of it getting started prior to our rescission could be problematic. That's the feedback that could potentially happen at annual town meeting based on it kind of like, it's gonna, anything that starts, it's gonna be a little bit of a hiccup, so to speak, going forward. So, if we can't get it rescinded, then we go back to that, which is not helpful. This would still be in place, so You'd know better. I'm just concerned about that.
We'll worry about the potential for a conflict later, but I think if we go forward with this, we were confident that businesses would have the opportunity. If you look at some of the things, a first offense is a warning. Second offense was a warning. So we're not even out to try to collect money on this. It's really get people to move in the right direction.
I totally
And
agree.
that's why, but we had to pick a day, and that was the day that we thought made the most sense.
Okay. Unfortunately, again, on this item, we have discussion on here and not a vote, so I'm going to poll the board, and if we need to come back for a vote, I think that would be probably sufficient in terms of you knowing our standing. I don't think a vote is needed anyway, but because you've done what you were asked to do, which is bring it to us, and, ultimately, it is the Board of Health that will adopt it, and then it'll be up to the people of the town. So unless you see it differently, I'll take a consensus of the board. Mark?
No, as I've said, I'm totally on board with what we're doing.
I'm for it. Support with some concern that it's potentially a burden on health department staff.
Ready.
We're good, Barry? Okay.
That's wonderful.
I'm fully in support, and I'll stand by you, Barry.
Excellent. Yeah, I think you got the sense of the board that we support this, and hopefully the board will take action on it next week, and then we will get a rescission at town meeting.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Good job on a sticky wicket.
Congratulations. Great work. We've got some other jobs. I think we're going to keep that list.
Thank you all very much.
What they'll do with all the time they'll now have in their weeks.
We have other things that I know that, all wonderful things. All right. Thank you very much. All right, Cultural Council update. Rachel, good evening. Woo!
Hey, Barry, is that your water?
Hi, Rachel.
Hello.
How are you?
Evening.
Good
Thank
to
you
see
for
you.
having me this evening. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Rachel Youngling. I am the newly elected chair of the Mid-Cape Cultural Council. This concludes my third three-year term on the council. We're only allowed to serve 6 years consecutively by Massachusetts state standard. Then we have to take a leave, and then we can be reappointed. So I've been actively involved with the council for about 15 years now. The Mid-Cape Cultural Council is a combination of Barnstable and Yarmouth, and we are one of 329 cultural councils in the state of Massachusetts. We receive our funding directly from the Massachusetts Cultural Council, which is our state arts agency, and they use a funding formula to decide how much we should be allocated based on many different factors: population, property values, socioeconomic demographics, and we are blessed being in combination with Barnstable to get one of the highest allocations on the Cape because we are a regional council. That gives us the opportunity to give a bit more money than some of the other councils do. For example, this year for the 2026 allocation, we've been granted $22,700 to give out in this grant cycle. By comparison, Dennis has $5,800, Harwich $5,700, Sandwich $9,300, Falmouth $8,700. So we get a little bit more leverage to really be a great support to our local community artists, because as individual artists within our community, they are often not nonprofits. And so if they're seeking support for an interesting or engaging program, it's great to have a place to go to where they can get that financial support without having to go and become a 501c3 in order to get the funding. For example, in our last grant cycle for 2025, we granted out just under $23,000. We had 59 applications requesting over $102,000 in funding. So there's a definitive need within the local community to fund these programs. And these range anywhere from early childhood programming with free access to programming for seniors with Alzheimer's, specific individual fine arts shows of photographers, painters, artists, education, puppetry series that happen at our local libraries. One of the themes we see across the whole of the Cape is that the libraries are funded, but they aren't funded to provide extensive programming to families, seniors, and the community at large. So the cultural councils do pick up a bit of that burden, and we fund a fair amount of programming through the local libraries. We approved last year 20 applications and declined 39. And the range of grants that we gave last year were from about $400 up to $1,500. Our cap is $1,500 because we really prefer to fully fund rather than to only give a partial funding. So we make this very clear in our priorities that we set out at this point in the process. Our grant cycle opened on September 2nd, and it's going to close on October 16th, and it's open to any member of the community who's interested in providing programming. The key criteria are that it must meet our local funding criteria, and those are not created in a vacuum. We do a community survey on an annual basis. We just concluded that in August. And the key criteria that the community is really looking for this year, the top priority is arts education and instruction. Coming in second is the visual arts, and third is public art. And within this, there are three main focus areas. The primary component is individuals want low-cost or free events. We see that as a great priority too. We don't want to give $1,500 to a program that's then going to charge $25, $50 a ticket for someone to attend, because how much public benefit is that truly affording to individuals within the community? So that's a key primary component for us. And then the two that come in second from our community survey are the projects celebrating local history and support for individual artists within the communities of Barnstable and Yarmouth. And we really value that very highly. We look to make sure that individuals are, if they don't have a long history, that they have a strong case study for what they want to provide within the community. But if they do have a long history, many of these organizations are known to us. The Cultural Center was here earlier. We've been a routine funding provider for many of their programs, specifically Rise and Shine, which is geared towards troubled youth within our community, who are then instructed by local artists in areas that they're passionate about. So we have a lot of great programming coming up through these grants that we've been able to fund. And really my plea tonight is twofold. Share with people you know that the grant cycle's open, and we love to see new applicants. We're eager to have more input from the community. Our Council is going to be doing a grant information session the week of September 22nd. We have not finalized the specific date, but it will be that week. It's going to be at the Cordial Eye Gallery and Artist Space on Main Street in Hyannis. And I'll get that information to you once we have the date finalized for that week. And we are, of course, available at any point for anybody that might be interested in more information. And that, our email is midcapecouncil2@gmail.com, and we're on top of that regularly. And then finally, if anybody's looking to volunteer, we need more Yarmouth representatives on the Cultural Council. We currently have 3 from the town of Yarmouth and 6 from the town of Barnstable. It's a robust group of various different backgrounds, but we would love to have more representation from Yarmouth.
It's great. Well, you do such a wonderful job for us. I really appreciate all that you do. And like you said, you've been involved for quite some time, almost 15 years. I know your reappointment is on our agenda coming up next. So is there a, I know you talked about the 22,700 because we're with Barnstable. Is there any percentage of grants that go to programs in one town or the other, or is it just kind of?
It is primarily driven by our community initiative survey. So we heavily rank based on those key characteristics. So in the back of our minds, we try to be equitable and not say all of the grants are going to go to Barnstable, and only 2 will go to Yarmouth. It does tend to be pretty equitable. This year, we had a little bit of a heavier program concentration in Barnstable, but this was also the first year where 3 of our grantees were very clear in providing equity between both towns and provided their programming equally in both towns through various library programs. So
Have a website for people?
it's the website is Mass Cultural. You can get to us through the Mass Cultural website, and on there are all the local cultural councils listed with all of the contact information, and that's where the grants database is too. So you would just go in there, set up a profile, and then it's a much easier grant application than many that you are familiar with, I'm certain. But we're here to provide assistance too. We're volunteers. We've been at this. We've had a lot of training through Mass Cultural, so we would love to support anybody who's interested.
Excellent. Liz, do you have any questions?
No, I'm delighted to meet you, Rachel, and I'm very curious about your shirt. See, there's a cat riding a rooster.
I'm a preschool teacher.
Ah, okay. Well, thank you. I will be looking forward to trying to get a grant.
Excellent.
No, thank you for all you do. I would love to pick your brain in the future for people who might be interested in our public art committee,
Yes,
which we have just
definitely.
formed.
We would be very interested in supporting that initiative. In my second term on the council, we implemented the High Arts Discovery Walk in the Barnstable Walkway to the Sea area.
Oh,
it was
very
a
nice.
juried process where we selected 4 artists to submit their applications to create public art, and then we did a fundraiser. Independent fundraiser where we were required to raise 50% of the funds, and then we got a matching grant from Mass Development to fund the whole project and the implementation. So we would love to work with you on that.
Okay, thank you. I'll be in touch.
Okay.
Wonderful. Dorcas?
Thank you very much for all you do.
You're welcome.
I have no questions.
How do we clone you?
Shirt
Good
will be the
question,
hard
Mark.
part.
Yeah.
Mark and I are talking about a lot of things all the time that aren't
know.
related to the cultural
Yeah.
council.
No, listen, Rachel, thank you so much for everything that you do for our community. It's very much appreciated. It really is. And I'm actually interested in if there are some upcoming events or artists. I think this is a board that's genuinely interested in doing more to support the arts. And I think to some degree, knowing if there are performances that are coming up, if there are things that are going on that we can follow, that maybe we can attend, I think that kind of information is always worth sharing.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
We can be more proactive in
Yeah.
getting that information directly to you.
Yeah.
Currently, anything that we know, we really encourage our grantees to give as much lead time to us as possible so that we can share that publicity, because we want them to be successful in the programming that they're offering. But anything that's coming up in the near term, I will definitely forward that.
Yeah, we have a communications director, Lori Sullivan. I would recommend, and through Bob, is hooking up with her so that we can get details out and learn more about. I mean, why not even help advertise on our public access channel and on our website some of the events and some of the performances? Anything that we can do to promote awareness and interest in our artists, I think, is something that we can do.
That's great.
So Lori, I'm sure, could be a huge help.
Excellent. Thank you for the recommendation.
Okay, you're welcome. So, thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much. We
My
very much
pleasure.
appreciate it. Perhaps when you're finished with your round of grants, we could maybe get some information on who was awarded, maybe, and then
Certainly,
we can see
yeah.
the events from that.
So the timeline, as it works for us, October 16th is the conclusion of that. We then have a 2-month reading period because one year we had 90 applications. So it's a lot because we truly want to vet them as adequately as possible and follow the conflict of interest regulations and all of that to make sure that we're really abiding by everything that we should be doing. The official announcements usually come out either end of December or early January due to certain waiting periods we have, but we should know by January.
Wonderful. Looking forward to that. Thank you again for everything. A lot of people don't know she also is a very talented volunteer for the Hyannis Park Civic Association, which has done a lot with PFAS studies for the town as well. So all that you do, we're very appreciative, and I appreciate the update.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
So hopefully we'll see you soon.
Yes.
All right,
Have a great
excellent.
evening.
You as well.
Thank you.
Okay, would you like to do a board and committee appointments now, Joyce?
Yes, that would be great. I would like to suggest reappointment for 3 years to the Mid-Cape Cultural Council of Rachel Youngling, a term that would start immediately and end in August 2028. She got away.
Second.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay. I'd like to propose Planning Board representative appointment to the Design Review Committee, Peter Slovak. This would be a one-year appointment, and it would end in August 2026.
Second.
So moved.
Thank you. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Sounded unanimous to me. Thank you.
Okay, great. That was easy. Upcoming agenda review. Let's see here. We need to put back on the final vote of the committee policy again for,
You realize I might die in the interim.
oh, don't say that. We're going to get it done. On September 23rd. Is that really all we have for September 23rd, Bob?
So far, we also have an executive session for wastewater discussion for property.
Okay.
And don't we have to put in for a vote on the plastics reduction?
If we need to, I'm not sure we need to, but if we do, we can make that a formality. If you look into that, Bob. I'm not sure what the,
It's not needed for a vote because it's the Board of Health. The way we had discussed it with the committee,
Charge, yeah.
that the select board would take a vote on the special town meeting warrant to rescind the current bylaw, that would be the hierarchy of the votes, so that Board of Health takes action on the regulation, select board takes action on recommending a warrant article that would rescind the bylaw.
okay, then I think we're good. October 7th looks a little heavy. I don't know if there's anything we can, I'm sure things will come in between now and the 23rd. We have 2 weeks, so if not, perhaps we can,
Do we have to do the age-friendly?
Oh, the committee charge.
that would be, I'd leave that to Joyce to make a recommendation, and if she needs an agenda item for that, I don't know if she's had the chance to review it.
And we should at least have a discussion on the Energy Committee as part of the appointments.
Yeah. Well, Tracy knows my feeling on this. I would just like to see it with more members. I hate to set an upward limit on a number that they have never been so low as before. But
Well, it's problematic if they can't do their work without a quorum, though, so that's the problem with that. But, if there's any members out there that are interested in serving on the Energy Committee, then please come forward. If not, I mean, if they can't do their work without a quorum, I think we at some point are gonna have to act. I mean, they're not a legislative board, so it's not as, crucial, but I agree. I mean, obviously more is better. I'm not sure 7 is, a necessity on a board like that, but that's your call. Why
my
don't you review it
impression
and-
is like the proceeding would then almost always be just with 3. I think this might end all attempts at bringing in more people, but that's just my perception from a bunch of conversations with the chair.
Okay. Well, that's, like I said, you can bring us a recommendation after you review it, and we'll put it on the agenda when you're ready. Right? Is the board comfortable with that? Okay. All right. Anybody else have anything on the upcoming agenda review? Highway warrant. Let's see on the back.
I don't think we need to we want to start our conversation about the transfer fee and what we might want to start in terms of our homework positions, desires?
Does anybody want to discuss that on the 23rd?
I think that would be a great idea.
Okay. Transfer fee discussion.
Yeah, and we may want to think, as part of that discussion, we might want to think about tasking a group or an advisory committee to come up with recommendations for us, including maybe a draft petition, just to sort of move that along.
Hey, what, get this group that we just had in here, boy.
I know,
it's a
I was just
hard-working
thinking, they'd be great. All right. All right. If there's nothing else on that, we will move on to individual items. Does anybody have any individual items this evening that they would like to discuss? Mark?
Yeah, I had office hours the other day, and a constituent passed on to me a resolution passed by the Barnstable Town Council. It passed unanimously, affirming the town's commitment to the values of freedom, justice, and equality for all. And I'm going to give this resolution to our town administrator and ask him to maybe put it in a future board packet. I think the request from this individual is that we consider adopting a similar resolution to the town of Barnstable. So I'm going to pass that to Bob. He can share that with everybody, and there may be other folks that might need to see it. So constituent office hours, there are a number of things that came up. It was very, very busy. I think people are still interested in what's happening with wastewater and the progress of the project. And I think we as a board have talked about, we had a meeting not too long ago on wastewater. I think it might be good for us to pick a date for a wastewater discussion and then do some advance advertising, in social media to invite people to come if they have questions. We've talked about that before.
Isn't there a public meeting on September 23rd?
Is there?
That's going to be the startup session with the new contractor for contract number 5. So it's going to be 10 a.m. right in this room, September 23. And we're also going to televise it as well.
Oh, that's good. I think that'll
Has
be.
any questions? And
Yeah, I honestly think that the more information we push out in terms of what we're doing and what's going on, I think the better off it is for everybody involved. I'm just hearing from way too many people who just, for whatever reason, they're in the dark about what's going on. When's this going to end? And to make available, Ryan or whoever to provide information to people that have questions.
maybe, some of the big picture stuff, because we tend to get in the weeds, like where are we going to be this week? It's the most important thing, but people don't know when's it going to end, what's the big picture, so.
And
Yeah.
and even the
Maybe on
the
different levels.
hookups and the fact that we had a little bit more information today even from the senator.
Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily need to be, the push for information doesn't always have to always come through us. It can be done separately. It can be workshop session or, want to know the latest. It can be done through DPW, or it can be done, I'm not suggesting for a minute that we have to be the board that always convenes these public information sessions, but I think we should be open to all sorts of ideas about getting information out. So I think it's just something that we need. I know we tend to focus on the traffic interruptions, but I've been asked questions, and again, the office hours are busy, but people wanting to know what phase am I in, when are you going to get to me, that kind of thing, information about, we've heard about noise and vibrations and stuff like that. But I think, again, I'm happy to see us do more, but I don't think it's necessary or it's required. I think anything that we can do to get information in front of people is incredibly helpful, very important, and to find creative ways to make our people available. The police chief, has coffee with the chief, right? Or coffee with the cop. I just think we should let our imagination go wild a little bit and be thinking about other kinds of ways to make our people available and accessible and to continually provide information out, and maybe putting more stuff on our YouTube channel or our government channel, about what's going on. Individual interviews. You talking about a blog. I just think I'm as the senator said, all of the above. Whatever tools we have, we just need to keep them fully engaged in helping people understand what we're doing, where we're going, what the big picture is, and what's happening. So I mean, that's something that I'd like to see. So.
Kind of jumping onto that, having an interesting situation over the weekend. For any of you that happened to be down South Shore Drive, it was kind of a,
Gonna say it.
it's kind of a wet ride.
It was a wet mess.
It was a wet ride, and it was not only coming up through the sewer covers, it was coming up through the tarmac as well. And people were letting me know that they had called the police department kind of in a panic, going, is anyone doing anything about this? And the police department was basically saying, well, it was kind of expected, we knew, and my initial reaction back to that is if it was expected, then we should have been letting people know ahead of time. That evidently it was something about, if I heard this correctly, it was something about that the contractor had to have water discharge ahead of whatever they were going to do on Monday. So they were sending all this water out. So what looked like major water main breaks from all the way from Smugglers to Pine Grove wasn't that at all. It was something else. And the more we can kind of jump ahead of that kind of thing, the better, I would think.
Yeah, it's very frustrating because you're dealing with a contractor that is not very responsible, and they do have approved methods of dewatering that don't involve flooding the whole town. And-
Well, this was right in the streets. The streets were not only flooded, they were full of mud. It was horrendous. It was,
Some cars couldn't get down there. I mean, Liz, your electric car would be really worried going down through that.
Mine's four-wheel drive, what are you kidding?
That's not a planned event, that's these guys not doing a great job. So it's very difficult, but I'll meet.
funny that you bring that up, because that's exactly what I was gonna bring up.
It probably should be something that should be on the 23rd, on September 23rd at 10 o'clock. It should be reviewed as, this is what happened, and this is.
But that's not having anything to
It's
do with
not-
Contract 5. That's completely
No,
separate.
but I think that the 23rd needs to be an opportunity for people to vent and hear. What happened down there? And so the fact that it was a surprise to everybody, there's a little bit of comfort in that, I don't know.
I would think, it's all well and good that we're having our open, our meeting on the 23rd with the new contractor, but I'd like to just see kind of an open dialogue on wastewater, which is separate from September 23rd. One that's where the South Shore Drive should come up and all the other things that people are really concerned about.
Agreed, but this is all we got.
I happened to, when I was getting calls, I ended up going down to South Shore to see what they were talking about. My God, that was scary.
Yeah.
And for the motels that were along that location, it looked like it impacted at least 3 of them, perhaps more. How their guests were getting in and out, I have no idea.
I had dinner at the Skipper Friday night and drove down there, and it was not good.
No.
It did look like you said, it looked like a water main break. They must have been dewatering, but they were dewatering into the street, which.
Well, I drive down there every day to check on what's going on, just to kind of see how the roads are doing and how it's held up. It's again, we have to find ways to constantly be accessible and available and communicating and hearing and listening and responding. It's just, again, I don't want us to be prescribing all the options, but it's like all of the above,
Is there any way that the message boards can come in handy for something like that? Obviously, the website should have said.
We can stay here all night, and
The thing is,
each one of us can come up with a dozen or so
Yeah.
suggestions.
The point is
It's not the most productive use of our time.
Bob's point is we can only communicate what we know, and chances are that wasn't communicated to us, is what I'm understanding.
That's right, that's not a planned event. That's just, bad performance.
So, in any event.
I have one little item I'd like to change up if we're, Mark, are you finished?
I'm done.
Okay.
Thanks.
I wanted to do a shout out. Connie Carney, who watches a lot of the meetings, she noted that we had a question about what are the Board of Health grants list. She sent it to us, so thank you, Connie, for filling in a blank.
Well, the only other, one of the things that I wanted to bring up was the opioid money. We should have a discussion on that, or maybe, Bob, you can update us at some point in time. We can get an update on the lawsuit funds that we've received and, the plan for expenditures and.
Yeah, because I don't think we've voted on any, I mean, there are other boards that are meeting that are acting on directing monies, but I don't think we have.
No, I would imagine it goes
We've
through
been
the
through
Board
it
of
through the
Health.
Board of Health that also involves the Substance Abuse Committee.
Okay.
We
Yeah.
can get an update and a report on all the money we've taken in, they've got some very creative proposals, and they've had very active solicitation for local programs and services.
Well, it'd just be nice to talk about the total dollar amount now that it's increased significantly, and, I think, I personally just want to see if we have like an overall plan. I know it's a one-time kind of funds thing, so,
Yeah, and if the Board of Health is managing it, then maybe we can have a joint meeting with them to find out what they're doing and where it's going. I think it's incumbent on us to have some general idea of what's being done with that money, because I know in my interactions with other select boards, folks seem to be aware elsewhere of what's going on in their town. And there's been a lot of front-page press lately about what the towns are doing.
programs.
with
Yeah,
their money.
great. Yeah, so maybe we can put that on an upcoming agenda,
Totally.
just to
That-
get an update.
Yeah, no, thanks for bringing that up.
All right. Bob, do you have any more town administrator items?
Nope, that's it.
All right, so let's talk about the consent agenda. On the consent agenda tonight, we have the
I-
Seaside Festival request for a special entertainment license and donations for the senior center.
I move to accept the consent agenda.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All's in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. The only other things we have in our packet are informational items, which is September blood drive. There's a whole list of dates. Soiree, and of course, the town's hiring. I think that is everything that we have to dispose of this evening. If everybody's inclined, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Three people simultaneously. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. Have a good night.